everyone, and welcome to the House of Seals Ministries as we continue a deep reading through the book of Hebrews. The lesson is sponsored by the House of Seals Ministries, created by Minister Yakanina, Prophetess Yamuna, and Brother Andrew. This is lesson 21, and we were talking about the contents of the ark. So when we ended lesson 20. So let's move to the next slide to just do a quick recap of the previous lesson. We were talking about the contents of the Ark of the Covenant and why it's important to know the content so you can understand really what the Ark is. And we talked that it was Aaron's rod, which was Yahusha, a symbol of Yahusha, which was life from death. It's manna, the bread, and the revelation of life. Or Yahusha, word and Torah, we've talked about that. The Ten Commandments, the summation of Torah, or the covenant itself. So all three of these are the covenant. It represents the covenant. And the covenant is what? The Ten Commandments, the revelation, right? The manna. So the ark contains the covenant. And we lost access to the Ark of the Covenant. So that's what we talked about last time. Are there any questions?
No, thank you.
All right. So let's continue. We got to do one more slide just to make sure we're on the same path. So we won't get people too confused because what we're dealing with is very big topics. All right. So what was truly beyond the veil? And understanding the contents of the ark really helped us answer this question. Beyond the veil was the ark that contained the covenant. And what happened was sin, disobedience, separated us from the ark of the covenant, right? Or the better way to say it is literally from the covenant. We got separated from the covenant. That's specific, all right? That's specific to a people then. No one had access to the Ark of the Covenant since then, except the high priest once a year. All right, so that should tell you how important this covenant is when it was restricted. And then once access per year, that high priest had to have his stuff in order to step beyond the veil to be in the presence of the covenant. And the covenant and the Torah, as we've learned in the previous lesson, is a package deal. They are a package deal. And that results in life. We spoke on that as well. Yahusha made it possible through his sacrifice, through his blood sacrifice, his atoning sacrifice. It made it possible to enter through the veil, us, giving us access, what? To the covenant. And we talked about that word consecrated, which meant to restore again. So that means he was doing something specifically for people who once had the covenant. All right? And we know that the covenant is life. And we know that this was the same covenant given to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, and so on. And we talked about how this means that Yahusha's sacrifice was only for one people. So we ended then with the two questions below. When did we lose access to the Ark of the Covenant? And we got an idea of that, but we need to understand the significance. And how can we prove that this covenant was accessible to one people? And I believe that's going to be proven as we continue. So that's where we ended last time, and I think it's a great point to start off now. Are there any questions or any adds before we go ahead and move to the new material?
I wanted to add one more thing, and that is we lost access to being in Yahuwah's eyes a royal priesthood and a holy nation, because that was part of us being obedient to him, to his laws, that we would be a peculiar people to him, a royal priesthood and a holy nation, and the right to rule. And we lost that. So that's another piece that we didn't have access to for a long time
Mm-hmm.
until
Yes, ma'am. That is
Yahusha.
so true.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Minister. Yes, ma'am, that is true. Very
Thank
much
you.
so.
That's all. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. No problem. So it's significant for us to understand that we, in a way, we're gonna talk a little bit about that, just a little bit, coming up, Minister, because we lost more than just access to the covenant, like you're saying. We lost a state of existence, right? We'll talk about that. So let's try to answer this first question then. When did we lose this access? As Minister White says so often, she refers to Genesis 3. And I'll be the first one to tell you I have poked fun at her because she says it so often. But after I've done my research for this lesson and really started to learn, bless Yah for the minister's guidance, I can understand fully why now. I understand why she says this now. I used to question, I wonder why it's so significant. And, we read chapter 3. Everybody pretty much has. But when you dive into it, you'll see. You'll see. I hope this lesson opens up your eyes. So it's important for us to discuss Genesis 3 quickly, just to give a up to the point moment. In this chapter, Adam and Eve failed. They disobeyed. And this resulted in them being kicked out of the garden. Now, after being kicked out of the garden, cherubim were placed to guard the way to the tree of life. So in the coming slides, we will discuss these 3 topics. We'll talk about cherubims more than once, but in the beginning, just really brief, and we'll bring them up later. The way of the tree of life, we'll talk about that, and then the tree of life itself. It's important to know what these are so we can understand really when we lost access to them. Okay? This is a long section, and we won't get through this lesson, just to make sure everybody knows that. So we'll have to do this series, this lesson session, more than one lesson, 1 hour. It's going to take more than 1 hour. I'm sorry. All right. So let's go ahead and get this kicked off. I'll go ahead and start the reading. Be the first reader. Genesis 3:23 through 24. Therefore, Yahuwah Elohim sent him forth from the Garden of Eden to till the ground from whence he was taken. So he drove out the man, and he placed at the east of the Garden of Eden cherubim, and a flaming sword was turned every way to keep the way of the tree of life. It didn't say the way to. It's the way of the tree of life. Now, of course, this is English, and they don't spell things right because they don't understand. The translators, especially around the 1600s, didn't understand it. The I am is the plural form of words in many instances in Hebrew. So cherubim should be without an S. It's automatically plural. Cherub is singular. So we know that there's multiple cherubim, or the cherubim. The way of the tree of life. Keep that in mind. Just note it. We will speak on this much later. It won't be at this time. This is important to understand that there was more than one, and we'll talk about it later. All right? What we're going to talk about next, though, is what is the way of the tree of life and what is the tree of life. Those are the 2 topics we're about to cover for the rest of this time period. We will discuss the cherubs later, or the cherubim later. All right? Any questions or asks? All right. Let's continue. So we want to know what's the way. And we've talked about this many times in the ministry. But I want us to understand when the way is spoken of, it's not simply a path or a direction, like I'm going to go this way to the store. No, the way is related to Torah, revelation, the truth, judgment. And we're going to discuss that right now. Psalms 119:30. I have chosen the way of truth, and thy judgments have I laid before me. So the way of truth is associated with judgments. And you cannot have judgments without the law or without Torah, right? So we know by default then, the way is associated with the law. However, there is a translation issue in this verse, and it's done with purpose. We'll talk about it on the next slide. Anybody have any questions or adds? Everybody's clear so far? We're talking about the way. It's important to stay with me here. There's a lot to talk about. All right. If everybody's good, let's go look at this. I'm going to show you in this verse, audience, why the English translators knew good and well what the word meant here and why they changed it to hide the association. That's very important. Let's move to the next slide. Psalms 119:30, the word truth is not the word truth in Hebrew. The word truth, and everybody that's in the ministry is going to recognize it. It's emunah. And we know we've talked about the word emunah many times. And that's without a doubt the word for faith. Without a doubt. That is the Hebrew word for faith. You might hear some say amunah, but it is truly the word for faith. And I can prove it by a verse right below Habakkuk 2:4. Behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him, but the just shall live by his faith. Same exact word. Why would the translators do this? Because they do not want you to know that faith is associated with the way. Because if you associate faith with the way, then you will automatically associate faith with the law. I hope you see that. The translators knew emunah was faith, but they purposely put it towards truth in this verse. Because they'll tell you all you need is faith or belief in Jesus and that the law is done away with. But here, David is saying, I have chosen the way of faith. And that way of faith is your judgments, Yahuwah. It's your judgments. And that means I can't be judged without the law. So the way of faith is the law. And to travel a way is action. It requires works and deeds because you can't travel a direction without doing. We'll talk a little bit about that as well. So whenever I see this in my studies, I like to drop it in our lessons so the audience can see the church. The fathers of our modern churches knew what they were doing when they were translating this. They're not dumb and ignorant. And we could prove it if we just pay attention. All right? Any adds or questions?
We're good.
All right. Let's keep going. Let's talk and still prove that the way is Torah. I like this particular verse because it don't say it right in your face, but it's right there in your face when you realize the relationship. Psalms 25:8-9. Good and upright is Yahuwah. Therefore will he teach sinners in the way. The meek will he guide in judgment, and the meek will he teach his way. And the meek will he teach his way. All right, now sinners is the word chata or kata, and it's a criminal or one accounted guilty, an offender. You can't offend something unless there's a law present. You can't be guilty of something without law. So if someone who is guilty of an offense is being taught the way, then the way must be lawful because it is opposite of sin. You don't teach sinners to sin. Definitely not Yah or Yahusha. That is for he who is teaching here. He will not teach disobedience. He will not teach sinners to sin. He's going to teach them the way, which is the opposite. No one can argue that point. So the way here must be lawful. This is a very good scripture to use with the church when they ask you, if to tell you when the law is done away with, then how can sinners be taught anything? All right? All right. Anybody have any questions or ask?
Not yet.
No.
All right. All right. Okay. Let's keep focusing on the way. Let's try a few more verses here. We know Psalms 119:1. Blessed are the undefiled in the way who walk in the Torah of Yahuwah. Very plain. Very plain. Right? And Psalm 77:13. Thy way, O Elohim, is in the sanctuary. I love this one. Who is so great a Al as our Elohim? What is in the sanctuary? In a comic book fair, right? We know that. We know that in the sanctuary is the law itself and the Ark of the Covenant. So Torah, without a doubt, Torah is the way. The law is the way. The Ten Commandments, right, is the way of the tree of life. Yes, sir.
Sorry, I thought you were going to have a pause there. I had a comment. And then you just said it too. That plays into what I was going to say, but I wanted to find a verse. So I had a thought, like, regarding the audience that would hear this in Christianity, because they still believe in judgment, and they still have part of the law. So I was just thinking, like, if they would say, well, because they kind of define their own way, you know what I mean, in their own faith. And so I had a verse from 1 Corinthians 9:20-21. And unto the Yahudim I became as a Yehuda, that I might gain the Yahudim. To them that are under the law, as under the law, that I might gain them that are under the law. To them that are without the law, as without Torah, not being without the Torah to Elohim, but subject to the Torah of Mashiach, that I might gain them that are without Torah.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree?
Oh, would I agree? Would I agree?
I don't know.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, brother. I just interrupted.
No, it's your turn.
Would I agree in Paul's attempts to reach those who have created their own path and how he did it? So are you using that verse? I want to make sure I understand you. Just demonstrate how the church bends what they believe is right and wrong, and thus you have to take different approaches to reach them.
Well, I was just trying to show how you need the verses that you've been reading require the full amount of the Torah, and it's not just the Ten Commandments; it's the entirety of the law, as Paul states, even. And it's not just having faith in something.
No, it's not.
That's finding it yourself in the church.
That is true. Okay, I see your point now. Yes, sir, that is true. And you're right, the church does do that. So we can say that the church as a whole, the bulk of churches, the bulk of Christianity is self-righteous. They are self-righteous. They have defined it outside the Torah. By default, you are self-righteous. I don't care how nice, how sweet, how disciplined you are in the religion that you live in. You're still self-righteous, even if there's ignorance involved. Yes, it is. All right. Very good. Thank you, brother. Anybody else?
I have a question, Brother Andrew. You made mention of,
Yes, ma'am.
of the three items that are in the ark, the commandments, the manna, and the rod. Will you be speaking on the law? Is that coming up later on?
The the law where it is located.
And the fact that it is also a part of it. Is- Am I stepping?
I do that for the purpose of comparing the covenant. But go ahead, that's much further. So please speak to it now because I agree with you. It's good to know that right now.
Well, the reason I brought that up is because of what Brother Isaac said, or what I understood him to say, is that we need all of it. And when you look in the book of Exodus, it tells you that the law that was written in the book, we're not talking about the Ten Commandments. They were placed inside the ark along with the manna and the rock, but the book of the law was placed on the side of the ark. It wasn't placed inside, but it was placed on the side. There was a pocket for it where the book was placed. So it's part of the covenant. And then you might ask yourself, well, why is it on the outside? Because at that time it was not written in our hearts. It was on the outside. But the new, but
Listen, listen.
mm, I'll pause here.
Yeah, you you were doing fine. You were doing
I was
fine.
doing fine until I started
And then
that
you
part.
put your shoes on. Lesson. She put her shoes on, brother Doctor. She was not. She had her socks on, and then she put on some shoes. Don't get the river dancing on the lesson. I
Okay.
know that's right.
I took off my wingtips. Thank you very much.
Messing with dealing with some juicy tidbits, minister.
Okay, okay. I'll wait. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. But I like your point, though. It's very important to our brother Isaac's point. The law was with the ark as well, not just the commandments, not just the rod, not just the manna. The ark did have the law with it as well. And we just spoke on how the scripture says here in Psalm 77:13. Thy way, O Elohim, is in the sanctuary. Well, what in the sanctuary? Other than the sanctuary being described in the law in Torah itself, right? But what specifically is in the sanctuary of utmost importance? It's beyond the veil, right? And what is that? The ark. So Minister White and Brother Isaac are correct.
So, question, Brother Andrew.
Yes, ma'am.
So, you all stated that the book, well, the law is not necessarily, it's not just the Ten Commandments. So, are we referring to like the dietary law, the other ordinance and statutes as well? That is what we're referring to when we talk about the book of the book of the.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am. Because the Ten Commandments don't speak of the Day of Atonement, for example,
True.
or the Feast of Unleavened Bread, or the Feast of Tabernacles, and all that stuff. So there's a lot of the Torah that is absolutely essential for salvation. We know the feast days are all about salvation, all about it. So we know that. So you're right. It's the whole law, but the Ten Commandments are the keys to loving Yah and our people. That's why they're in us. They need to be in us, written on our heart. Okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Good question, Sister Sarah. And thank you for not lesson stepping. I thought you were going to ask that lesson stepping question.
I'm not that good.
Oh, whatever. All right. Everybody follows. We're going to discuss further on the next slide. All right?
Mm-hmm.
Bless y'all. All right. So we've talked about the way. The way requires judgment, right? And if it requires judgment, Torah is required. The Ten Commandments are required. The revelation or Torah itself is required. So if judgments are required, then what is required? works, deeds, acts are required. That's why Psalms, one of the Psalms we just spoke of, where it says truth instead of faith. Because why? Faith in the law or faith in judgment, being in relationship, proves that faith is not a belief, but it requires acts. So the way that we are speaking of are the works, deeds, acts of obedience. They are what is required of Torah. So the way of the tree of life is Torah, and for us, it's in obedience to the Torah. You're not going to get to the tree of life without having the way of the tree of life in you. That's what the Ark of the Covenant is all about. That's what it's all about. Everybody follows. Any questions are asked? All right, we'll keep going. Let's see if I can finally get a reader here. So what we're going to do now is focus on who is the tree of life. We got the way of the tree of life. So who is the tree of life? And what does a tree first? I want you to understand what a tree symbolizes in Scripture. Let's pick Brother Gian. You mind reading first for me? Both verses, please.
Mm-hmm. And he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, that bringeth forth his fruit in his season. His leaf also shall not wither, and whatsoever he doeth shall prosper. Then you 4 and then 22. The tree grew and was strong, and the height thereof reached unto heaven, and the sight thereof to the ends of all the earth. It is thou, O King, that art grown and become strong, for thy greatness is grown and reacheth unto heaven, and thy dominion to the end of the earth.
All right, so 2 examples of a person being a tree. Thank you, brother. All right, let's continue. We have a few more. Let's see. Brother, you want to read for me these 2 verses?
Yes. In Jeremiah 11:16, Yahuwah called by name, a green olive tree, fair and of goodly fruit. With the noise of a great tumult, he hath kindled fire upon it, and the branches of it are broken.
Mm-hmm.
Psalms 52:8. But I am like a green olive tree in the house of Elohim. I trust in the mercy of Elohim forever and ever.
All right. Thank you, brother. I like that last one in particular. What's great about Jeremiah 11:16 for the audience sakes, when Paul talks about, isn't that Romans 13, brother? The branches, the wild branch, the wild olive tree.
Yeah, I believe so.
I believe it is. But I know brother Gianni will correct me if I'm wrong. But this is where Paul is getting the broken branches off. Yahuwah only broke the branches of the olive tree, which he called his own people. So these branches were broken off from us. So these branches that are being grafted in are not branches of some foreign tree or from some other people. It's the very branches that Yah broke off himself. And what I like about Psalms 52:8, he says he's a green olive tree in the house of Yahuwah, in the house of Elohim. That's a healthy, prosperous tree. King David knew where he needed to be. All right. Anybody want to add anything to this? I believe we have one more. All right. Let's continue.
I got something.
Oh, okay, brother. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say this is if I'm not less stepping. The tree also represents wisdom as well.
All right, it's lesson stepper.
Never
Go
mind.
ahead. Put your shoes on. I mean, he said to my brother, he might as well just pull out a boombox and start playing a cassette from the 80s.
I know the feet gonna be hurting.
Oh boy. Ah, Brother Gian. But you are correct, sir. And I thank you. We're going to show a little bit of that. I won't go too much into that because I know your lesson that you've been working on speaks to wisdom in more detail. But I only need enough to know to show that you are correct, which you'll see soon. You'll see soon. Anybody else? Anybody else wish to try to lesson step? Okay. All right. All right. Let's move to the next one. What does tree symbolize? Minister White, do you mind reading? Oh, no, Minister White, no, ma'am, not you. Sister Sarah, would you mind reading Mark 8:22-24?
Yes. And he cometh to Bethsaida, and they bring a blind man unto him, and besought him to touch him. And he took the blind man by the hand, and led him out of the town. And when he had spit on his eyes, and put his hands upon him, he asked him if he saw aught. And he looked up and said, I see men as trees walking.
Thank you, sister. So here we see then, in totality, trees symbolize people in scriptures. So when you see trees, think, could this be a person? All right? So now with understanding that, let's go see where Brother Gianni was lesson. All right, Minister White, who is this tree? Please read Proverbs 3, both sets of verses, please.
Sure. Happy is the man that findeth wisdom, and the man that getteth understanding. She is a tree of life to them that lay hold upon her, and happy is every one that retaineth her. Yahuwah by wisdom hath founded the earth, by understanding hath he established the heavens. By his knowledge the depths are broken up, and the clouds drop down the dew.
All right, thank you, Minister. So let's think about this. We gotta understand that there's going to be added wording here because English does that to help us understand. But you don't even need is and a in here, or is. You should say something like this: wisdom, a tree of life. Okay. Now, wisdom is feminine, but you got to understand: a person, male or female, can possess wisdom. Because think about it. Yahusha said, Solomon says that it was by his knowledge he used wisdom to create everything. He used wisdom. All right, and we'll prove that when we piece together additional scriptures. But I want to show you that wisdom can be possessed by a male or female. It is feminine, and we've talked about this in other lessons, how important it is that men, especially those who are married, listen to their wives because their wives are a source of wisdom, right? So we know that in relationships, I know where I'm going. I'm going to talk to the wife in my life. But in reference to this here, I want to show you that it can be with both. If that wasn't the case, then Solomon could not write Proverbs, and David could not write Psalms, right? Mm-hmm. So let's look at another verse just to demonstrate what I'm talking about really quick. Proverbs 3:21. Or did you have a question, Minister?
I wanted to comment on the previous screen.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go right ahead.
That's okay. Where it says at the end of verse 20, by his knowledge the depths are broken up, and the clouds drop down the dew. If you look at that superficially, it sounds like he's talking about the weather. But when you go to Deuteronomy 32, verse 2, here's a hint. It says this: my doctrine shall drop as the rain. So what's dropping as the dew or as the rain is the word of Yahuwah. We can't get away from it.
That is a very good one, Minister. You might need to put that in the chat.
I did.
Oh, okay. Excellent. That's a good one. Ooh. All right. I like that one a lot. All right. Anybody else?
Yes, I like to
comment on that. She said that the water is coming, the word is coming down like the rain. It also has a washing effect to it, where the word also cleanses the soul of impurity, of sin, the guilt, the sin itself, and the guilt attached to it.
Indeed, it does. Yes, ma'am. That is so true. I know we've had conversations multiple times about that, how the revelation is water. And I know we have a lesson, not in this one, but we have another lesson that we'll be following up on, where the significance of water symbolizing Torah is spoken on extensively. Yes, ma'am. Anybody else? All right, let's continue. All right. Here I was pointing out how, wisdom can be possessed and used. Here's an example of a son, right? Proverbs 3:21, Solomon. My son, let not them depart from thine eyes. Keep sound wisdom and discretion. So even though wisdom is feminine, the son had possession of it. So a person, male or female, can possess wisdom. So when we see wisdom, a tree of life, we know that by his knowledge, he used wisdom to create everything, or to provide the word, to provide the dew, the Torah, the revelation. And we did talk about that in another lesson, how we know that it was the word or revelation used to create everything in the first place. Right? Okay, so we're going to piece it together a little bit more. Before we do that, any questions? I want to make sure we're following. We know that the way is Torah. We know way is the Ten Commandments. We know way is the covenant, the way of the tree of life. And now we're discussing how the trees are people, represent people. Now let's make this more specific. Any questions?
That's okay.
All right, let's continue. All right, who can read? Let's see.
I can read.
All right, Brother Isaac. Yeah, please do. Please. Who is the tree who used wisdom to create everything? Read both verses, please.
Yes, sir. 1 Corinthians 1:24. But unto them which are called, both Yahudim and Greek, Mashiach, the power of Yahuwah. Oh, I think I read that wrong. But unto them which are called, both Yahudim and Greek, Mashiach, the power of Yahuwah, and the wisdom of Yahuwah. Colossians 1:16. For by him were all things created, that are in heaven and that are in earth, visible and invisible, whether they be thrones or dominions or principalities or powers. All things were created by him and for him.
Excellent. Excellent. So here it is. Paul is saying, not only is Yahusha the power of Yah, why? Because he's the word. That stuff creates and destroys if it's spoken, right? And through him, what he is himself, he created everything. Everything. And we just read how wisdom created the foundations, right? Broke up things, created things, rained down the dew, the water. So we're seeing who this tree is, correct? It's pretty clear. But we'll make it a little clearer in the next slide. Anybody else have any questions or ask? All right, let's continue. All right, let's see. I think, Sister Monique, are you able to read? I'm not sure if she's able to read or not. If you don't read, you got to read nice and loud for us, because we're for the audience and YouTube and all the other areas that gets to share our videos with us. Who is the tree and who is life?
Okay, I can read.
Excellent.
Yahuwah says unto him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me. Revelation 22, 1 through 2, and he showed me a pure river of water of life, clear as crystal, proceeding out of the throne of Yahuwah and of the Lamb in the midst of the street of it. And on either side of the river was there the tree of life, which bare 12 manner of fruit, and yielded her fruit every month. And the leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nation.
Excellent. Thank you, sister. So here we see that Yahusha says, I am life. I am the way. So he's making it clear who's the tree. Then here it says that the tree that sits in the midst of the city, the New Jerusalem, as they call it, right? And the water of life coming from the throne, and the tree sits on either side. That's a big tree. Have you ever seen a tree span a river? I want you to picture that. This tree spanned the river. It's on both sides. So we're going to talk about that on the next slide. I'm stepping my own lesson.
Mm-hmm.
And then it had 12 manner of fruit. That's very specific. And it was healing for the nation. That's specific too. We're going to move and talk about that. But before we do, is there anybody that would like to say anything before we move on?
Do the fruit represent the disciples or the apostles?
We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that.
Okay.
Well, I will say that and more. We'll talk about it. That's a good question. Anybody else?
I want to give a verse.
All right, brother. Give a verse.
Regarding to the topic, it says in do you have Ephesians? Are you going over Ephesians at all?
No, brother, go right ahead.
In Ephesians chapter 1, in verse 17, it says that the Elohim of our Adonai, Yahusha HaMashiach, the Father of glory, may give unto you the spirit of wisdom and revelation in the knowledge of him. Well, who's the him? And then he says in the next verse, the eyes of your understanding being enlightened, that you may know what is the hope of his calling and what the riches of the glory of his inheritance in the saints. He continues, Paul, he is found on this multiple times. So it isn't something that's foreign.
That is true. That is true. It's not. And he had an understanding of it too, didn't he? All right. That's good, brother. Appreciate that. Very good. Anybody else? All right. Let's continue. I believe I got a duplicate slide right here. I wanted to talk about nations here, but I'm going to do it on another slide. So let's continue. All right. Let's continue to summarize what we've read so far. Who is the tree and who is life? The tree of life spans both sides of the river. If you picture that tree in your mind, that means that the water of life, which was that crystal clear river of water of life that was flowing from Yahuwah's and Yahusha's throne, it flowed from that throne, right? It flowed through the tree. It had to, because the tree spanned the whole river. It didn't go around the tree. It goes through the tree. So the tree provides it to us. And due to the water of life, Yahusha bare 12 kinds of fruit. Now, since we're talking about Jerusalem and the new city, it's not just 12, it's not just 12 disciples, as you would say, but these are the tribes, the nations, those of the nations who have been restored. Because why? They have drunk of the living water. They have lived and purified themselves according to Torah. They are righteous. How do I know that? Because the leaves of this fruit were used to heal the nations. So in other words, by Yahusha and the Torah that gives life, the covenant and the 12 tribes are restored, and the leaves that the 12 tribes produce heal the nations. All right? We'll talk about the nations in a minute. Anybody have any adds to this and any questions? Are they understanding? So this tree of life, we know who this tree of life is by now. We've talked about it enough. So the tree of life was Yahusha in the garden, and we're going to pound that. We're going to continue to pound that.
Brother Drew,
Okay.
question. What does the leaf represent?
We'll talk a little more about that with another verse.
Okay.
But if I am the holy priest and what I'm offering you will heal you, what does it represent then?
Wisdom, the word. Knowledge.
The word.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Okay.
Knowledge. Torah. Exactly.
Good.
Exactly.
Okay.
And we'll show another verse to that in a minute, I believe. But isn't that extraordinary? You have these 12 fruit offering leaves that heal nations. So the church will use this and say, see, you eat the leaves because you're sick. Not knowing the true understanding of this verse, it's very specific to one people. Because who needs healing? We're going to talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
Why would he say that? Who needed the healing?
Mm-hmm.
That's right, and I'll prove it. I'll prove it to you. I don't just ask questions and don't answer them. All right, so I put in here purposely, what nations then? We're going to start talking about that in the next slide. Any questions or asks? Any more to provide here?
Okay.
Mr. White did have some. Okay, we're going to continue then. All right. So this word nations is funny because I've talked about it in our lessons many times about the word Gentile. And the word Gentile is ethnos. It's used, this word ethnos, or the Greek word for nations or Gentiles, or even Greeks, is the word ethnos. But it's almost, I would say, at least 90% of the time translated to Gentiles. Why suddenly then, in the book of Revelation, many times it's translated to nations? Because the way the context goes in the book, it's about judgment and restoration. And they can't put Gentile here because then it says it's only for one people. And it excludes the Most High people, right? So they know they couldn't say just Gentile. They know they couldn't justify that because the word Gentile is a mistranslated, misdefined, undefined, incorrectly defined word. So you see the word nation or ethnos is actually the right translation, period. It should be this always in Scripture, but it's not. Instead, they use the word Gentile, which is the Greek or the Latinized form, and misdefine it anyway, creating a definition so they can use it to apply to them. All right. So why did the translators not follow the typical pattern? Because nation can be used to define all people. It can. However, the 12 fruits bear fruit for people who needed healing. That helps us understand who the 12 fruits are, and it understands what the leaves do. All right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody follows.
Mm-hmm.
Any adds or any questions? All right, Brother Gianni. Who is this tree? Who are the nations that need healing by the tree of life? Please read Isaiah 1:4-6 for me.
A sinful nation, a people lacking iniquity, a seed of evildoers, children that are corrupters. They have forsaken Yahuwah. They have provoked the Holy One of Yashar unto anger. They are gone away backward. Why should ye be stricken anymore? You will revolt more and more. The whole head is sick, the whole heart faint. From the sole of the foot even unto the head, there is no soundness in it, but wounds and bruises and putrefying sores. They have not been closed, neither bound up, neither mollified with ointment.
That's a nasty state. That's a person so nasty, so sick. You put them in the bed, put a sheet, you put like a plastic curtain around their bed, then you put a sealed curtain that seals the room off, and then you close the door and you put a warning sign on the outside.
Right.
That's a very sick person. Y'all was really over the top detailed on this, right? You got blistering sores and wounds that are festering and putrefying. That means you got gangrene, limbs dying, pus coming out. You are nasty sick. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry for the typo. I didn't get rid of the Lord's. I apologize. But this is a very sick person, right? Mm-hmm. Very sick person. And he's talking about his people. All right, if there's no comments, we got another example of this.
Oh, I got a comment.
Yes, sir. Oh, you're okay. Go ahead, brother.
You going over Revelation 2 and 3? Because I noticed you had 1 and 2. I mean 22 and 3. I'm sorry.
I can't recall.
Okay.
Can't recall. Well, go ahead and discuss it, brother.
Not only this verse in Isaiah, but if they want to take those 2 verses, they're going to have to continue to read, because in verse 3 it says, "And there shall be no more curse." We know that's applicable to according to Deuteronomy. And then he says, "But the throne of Yahuwah and of the Lamb shall be in it, and his servants shall serve him, and they shall see his face, and his name shall be on their foreheads." This is very descriptive. This is very specific. This isn't regarding to everyone. So this kind of healing is going to people who have this curse applied to them that needs to be removed.
Mm-hmm. Correct. No, brother, I don't talk about that one. So thank you. All right. Anybody else? All right. Let's continue. All right, Minister White.
Yes.
Who is this? Ezekiel 34, please.
Ezekiel 34:15-16. I will feed my flock, and I will cause them to lie down, saith Adonai Yahuwah. I will seek that which was lost, and bring again that which was driven away, and will bind up that which was broken, and will strengthen that which was sick. But I will destroy the fat and the strong. I will feed them with judgment.
Excellent. See? Sick, broken, messed up, right? Messed up. And this feeds right into the next verse. Right here. Let's go to Matthew. Brother, you want to read Matthew 9:11-13?
I got you. Matthew 9:11-13. And when the Pharisees saw it, they said unto his disciples, "Why eateth your master with publicans, sinners?" But when Yahusha heard that, he said unto them, "They that be whole need not a physician, but they that are sick. But go ye and learn what that meaneth. I will have mercy and not sacrifice, for I am not come to call the righteous, but sinners to repentance.
Thank you, brother. So here, even Yahusha saying, who are sick? The sinners. Who are sinners? Those who broke Torah. Who broke Torah? Yashar, not the world. So the healing of the nations, the leaves are for the healing of the nations. The nations are the tribes, the scattered, those who remain. And then also it becomes the Torah and the Revelation does become available for the world, but that is through the priesthood, the holy priesthood, and you can't have them until all of us are awoke or awakened. So when you read Revelation 22 and you're talking about the 12 fruits that come of the tree of life, the tree of life is Yahusha and the people he came for. They bear fruit, right? And they produce leaves that heal their people. And it makes sense when you realize that tree of life is Yahusha. And Yahusha said himself, I did not come but for the sinner. The righteous didn't need him, right? Does that make sense to everyone? Everybody's following?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any excellent. Any adds or questions? Because we're going to sum this section up on the next slide. You're going to have a full summary of verses you can screenshot if you want for reference later.
It looks like the references you showed in Revelation about the tree being in the midst and the rivers flowing through it and having fruit, 12 fruit, and the leaves are for the healing of the nations. It looks like what's written in Revelation is a reversal of what happened in Genesis chapter 3, because I had to laugh because I knew you were going to say something. Because if you read Genesis chapter 2, it tells you that Genesis chapter 2, verse 9, then Adonai Elohim caused to sprout from the ground every tree that was desirable to look at and good for food. Now the tree of life was in the midst of the garden, and also the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So the tree of life was in the midst of the garden to begin with. It was there to begin with. And when you look at Revelation, it's there again, the tree to heal the nations, to bring life to the nations. So Genesis 3, we lost access to that. And in the book of Revelation, we regain access to what we had before we fell.
Because we regained the way to that truth, to Yahusha. That's that, and we'll flesh that out in a second. Just on this last, the next screen is our last screen, and we're going to call it a night.
Okay.
So here's the tree of life summary. All right, we know that Yahusha is the word. We didn't go over one-on-one in this section, but we did previously. Yahusha is the word from the beginning, and Yahusha is the way, the truth, and the life. And we know that Torah is the way, and that Torah is life. We went over Ecclesiasticus in the previous lesson. We know that people are trees, and wisdom is the tree of life, or the tree of life had and used wisdom to create the foundations of the earth and heaven. And we know that Yahusha is Yahuwah's wisdom and power, and all things are created by him. When we look in Revelation 22, 1 through 2, we know that Yahusha is the tree of life. That heals, not the heals. That heals the tribes, right? And that Yahusha came to heal the sick, which were only his people, the ones who broke the covenant. So we lost access to the tree of life because we lost the way. We lost our way. We couldn't find the tree of life because we lost our way. Yahusha is the tree of life. The way is in the ark of the covenant. The covenant is the way. Do you see it? So when the church says there's a new covenant, there's now a brand new way, to get to the tree of life? Where does it say that? There's a new ark? Ooh, boy, that sounds dangerous. We already talked about how he was wiping people out, right?
Mm-hmm.
For coming into that ark and not being right with it. So we've learned today that we lost access to the covenant. And when we lost access to the covenant, we really lost the way. And when we lost the way, we lost access to the tree of life. And the tree of life is Yahusha. It's therefore Yahusha was in the garden. We lost access to him. We lost access to our king and the kingdom. We see that? People, everybody following, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
And
Go ahead, brother, because we're going to end it here.
it's okay. I'll hold it to the next.
Okay. All right. All right. And we're going to prove in the next lesson what we're saying. All right. But we're going to hold it off to the end. So if there are no more questions or any asks, we'll end it here. All right. Well, shalom, everyone. Thank you for joining the House of Selah Ministries. I hope you're following. It is a lot of information. I have to take it slow so I can make sure the audience sees. I hope the pace is agreeable. If you have any questions or comments, please post them on the lesson or on our website, on the ministry's website. We will respond. We thank you for joining us, and shalom, everyone.
And don't forget to subscribe. Please give us a thumbs up or a like, and also share with all of those who you feel are seeking truth just as you are. Shalom.